So we're only 3 days away from Election Day. We only have 1 day left of early in person voting in Virginia. That's today. So tomorrow we'll kind of have a final number on what those in person early votes are. New Jersey, it ends tomorrow on Sunday. And on Monday, we can get a bit of an idea where this election is. And in today's video, we're actually going to look at how those votes are parsing out right now and what the Republicans should expect on Election Day in order to get the win. And I'll tell you, it's really becoming unobtainable for the Republicans. The amount that they need to get on Election Day is just slipping further and further and further away. And there are some numbers in New Jersey that if I'm the Republicans, I would be worrying about a lot. So we're going to go ahead and delve into the nowcast. We're going to delve into the numbers and see what's happening in these two states, because we are on the cusp of saying that the Democrats are in a very strong position for these two elections. So let's go ahead and look at New Jersey. So here is Vote Hub here for New Jersey, and we're going to look at the mail-in ballots and early ballots because we're not seeing much of a change, but we are, on the other hand, seeing a huge change. Again, that hurts the Republicans. If we look at the overall ballots that have been submitted, 51.9% of those that have been submitted so far are from registered Democrats. 29.1% are from registered Republicans and 19% from people who are other party voters. Now, if we go over here and we look at mail-in ballots, 62.1% are Democratic ballots. That's just gone down a little bit. It's been hovering around the 62% throughout the last week or so. So this isn't much of a change. Now, one thing that I have said, and I'll continue to say it, in order for the Republicans to win, they need to actually have more registered Republicans turn out in in-person early voting than Democrats. But what's happening is that gap is it's fluctuating, but it is getting a little bit higher. So we have that number right here. We can see that 40.6% of those who have voted early are Democrats, while 38.2% are Republicans. Those numbers need to be flipped in order for the Republicans to win, but it is not. Now we have a 2.4% gap, and in 2024, if we can compare to that, they only had a 1.5% gap, and this is from the University of Florida Election Lab. Great site if you are looking at midterm and presidential elections. So we can't compare it to the 2021 gubernatorial race just because we don't have that data. But there's something more. If I'm the Republicans, there's something that I worry about way, way more than these numbers. Now, again, this is 2024 composition. Let's not worry about the raw numbers. Let's think about the composition. Let's look at mail-in ballots. So we can see the Democrats in 2024 were 57.9% of mail-in ballots. So you can see now they're at 62.1%. That is better. And if we look here, we can see this one's a little bit different just because independents showed up more to vote. But it's not the composition that we're going to look at now. Let's go to mail-in ballots again here in 2024. We can see 791,870 mail-in ballots were accepted. They were submitted. If we look at in-person voting, we see 2,336,868. So we're talking about 3 times more of the in-person early voting than we see the vote by mail. And if you're the Republicans, that's very, very important because you were a lot closer when it came to in-person voting than you were when it came to mail-in ballots. If you're the Republicans, you basically are like, we're not going to win the mail-in ballots. Let's look at what we have now. So if we look at mail-in ballots, we have 567,643. But and remember, this included yesterday's number. We only have 2 more days to go. If you look at the in-person early vote, the metric that the Republicans need to do well in, we're at 510,937. We haven't even reached the actual mark from before. And if we're talking about that the in-person early voting was 3 times larger than the mail-in ballots, that means that this early ballot number at the end should be, because what do we have here? 567 should be at about 1.6 million voters. Okay, at the end. So what we're saying is in order for the composition of the vote to equal 2024, which again, remember, is an election that Kamala Harris won, this number is going to have to go up by over 1 million over the next 2 days. That's not going to happen. The fact that early in-person voting is this slow and the Republicans need to do well in it means one of two things. So the first thing it means is that we can have a very low turnout election, which we could. That is possible. That's the case. The Democrats are going to win. The second thing, we're going to have a very high election day Republican turnout. The Republicans are going to have to be strong on election day. And we'll get into the nowcast model as to what that is. So in fact, let's go ahead and get into that right now. But before we get into the nowcast model, I just want to remind you that I am going to be doing election day live. I already have the link for it, so you can go ahead and click on that link and save it. I will be starting maybe an hour or two before the election and then just continuing throughout the election. So I will be doing election night. But let's go ahead and look at the overall nowcast model in New Jersey right now. So again, a nowcast model is if the election were to end today with all the votes that have been cast so far are the final votes for the election, how would that actually look based on previous election results? And that number would be 66.2% for the Democrats, 37.8% for the Republicans. Again, this is not what it's going to be on election day. I'm just saying that would be what it would be right now. This model has hardly changed at all, and the Democrats continue to look good at it. Now, if we go over to the pre-election polling model, now I mentioned this before, I can only get data from a number of counties except for 5 counties in New Jersey, and I can see how they performed on election day, vote by mail, and in-person early voting. I can take the pre-election polls and say, these are the results of Harris versus Trump, and then say, what does the nowcast model say now with those same counties? So as you can see here, we can see the 2024 presidential vote. Kamala Harris had 58.8%, and Trump had 41.2% in all the New Jersey counties, except for the counties listed in this graphic that you see. Now, according to the nowcast model that I have right now, if the election were to end today, 63.2% would vote for the Democrats, while 36.8% would vote for the Republicans. And I've already said a number of times, if the Republicans plan to win, they need to get this nowcast number under 58.8%. And right now, they're not even remotely close to getting to that point at all. All right, so what I just showed you was pre-election day polling, but what about maybe if all is said and done, what do the Republicans need to get on election day in order to make this a 50-50 race? So I have that model as well. So let's go ahead and look at that with the same caveat as before. We have the 5 counties that we're going to exclude. So if we look at the 2024 number, you can see throughout New Jersey, with the exception of those 5 counties, that Donald Trump won 50.6% to the Democrats, Kamala Harris, 49.9%. That ended up being the result on election day for those counties, with the exception of those 5. And again, that's only election day voting. That's obviously not the whole entire state, because then Donald Trump would have won it. If we look at high and low turnout possibilities, high meaning that the turnout will be around 40.5% and low at 38.5%. Those are the last 2 elections. We can see the Republicans need to get about 59 to 60% of election day vote. Now, if Donald Trump only got 50.6%, and that was considered a good year for Republicans, well, this number seems almost unattainable based on what we've seen before. So we're at this point right now that less and less is happening in early in-person voting for the Republicans, and they're going to have to make up for that on election day. If I'm the Republicans, I am really worried about this early ballot number being significantly lower than it should be. It should be way past the mail-in ballot number by now, but it is not. With that being the case, let's go ahead and go over to the nowcast model accuracy for New Jersey. And I have it here. We're finally over 0.9 On our R square, 0.9034, we can see that Bergen County is still underperforming, but all the other counties are performing at what we kind of expect them to be. So there's the accuracy of the model. So I'm going to have to wait to continue because my internet is out. So see you in a few minutes. All right, 15 minutes later, and the internet's back. So here we are. Let's go ahead and go into Virginia. And you can see in Virginia, 65.4% of the ballots have been returned, which equals 1,309,150 ballots that have been submitted. Today is the last day of early in-person voting. So tomorrow, when we look at the numbers, we're going to get a good idea of what's going to be happening. Now, let's go ahead and look at the nowcast model. And I'm also going to go ahead and show you the election day analysis like I did with New Jersey, so you can see and get an idea where Virginia is in that case. But the nowcast model we have right here, and if the election were to end today with a 20.73% turnout, which is about 40 to 42% of what we should expect the election to be if it's a high turnout election, we have the Democrats winning 66.4% of the vote to the Republicans 33.6% of major party vote. And remember, and this is a big caveat, especially when it comes to Virginia, that this is taking the average Democrat versus the average Republican, and it doesn't account for specific campaigns. It's really kind of hard to measure for that without bringing in polling data. But you might have a situation when Spanberger might do better, but the attorney general's race might be more Republican. So you can't account for that there. This is just kind of average amongst all how they should perform. And the Democrats are doing quite well. And as you can see, Terry McAuliffe, I always mention this, Terry McAuliffe won 59.1% of early vote and vote by mail in 2021. The Democrats are now significantly ahead of that. There wasn't much change in the nowcast model between yesterday and today, but here you go right now. Now let's go ahead and go into that election day breakdown. So you can see in 2021, of the major party votes, Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, won 56.8% of that vote. And that resulted in a 2% win for the Republicans. But now, if the Republicans want to be 50-50, not 2% ahead, but just 50-50, they would have to win either 59.9% in a high turnout election, which would be about 54%, or in a low turnout election, which would be about 47%, the Republicans would have to win 62%. So really, the Republicans are at a 60-40 race right now. The Democrats have done so well in early voting that the Republicans in both New Jersey and Virginia are really going to have to make up those numbers and really have to make them up in a historic sense. So if you're the Democrats in both of these states, everything's looking really good. Now, let me talk about 2024. And a lot of people talk about my predictions and all that. I hate making predictions. I even said in my predictions video, I hate making predictions because we have no idea what's going to happen on election day, right? Every single one of the states, except for Wisconsin and Michigan, I'll go ahead and admit those. Those are the ones that I feel that I really did get wrong. I gave warnings for every single one of them. I didn't give it as much on YouTube, but if you go read my Substack, I was just saying, I'm worried, I'm worried, I'm worried, I'm worried. My Substack was more doom and gloom than my YouTube page was. But even on YouTube, I would do a video about how Pennsylvania is in trouble and everyone would hate me and tell me that I was wrong. Okay. But throughout that election, I did not feel confident at all. Like, not at all. I felt that this was going to be not what we think. Okay. Just because I predicted I should have, it was my fault. I listened to certain people. Again, live and learn. I listen to certain people. That's why I am not listening to anything outside of what I have for my nowcast model. I've kind of just put walls around me and only looking at what I'm doing right now without any outside influence. That being said, I haven't felt this good for an election day for the Democrats in quite a while. This actually looks like it's going to be strong and really strong as well. Now, if the Democrats somehow lose in these races, then we have to start looking at voter fraud. Then we have to start looking at why this is the case, because These numbers do not add up to a Democratic loss. The other ones, I was like, oh, the Democrats, I always gave the hints to say, this is a lot performing a lot less or what. We're not seeing that here. And as somebody who believes there won't be any free and fair elections in 2026, and I mean, I really mean there won't be any elections, because somebody asked me, well, we might have elections, but not free and fair elections. I'm like, well, then that's not an election. That's just somebody picking the candidate, right? That's not an election. Uh, we need to see what happens on election day. If everything goes smoothly and the results that we expect look like what we expect, then that's good. But if they don't, it's going to be a little harder for some Republicans and conservatives to tamper with these machines, but they could. We never know what will happen. But this looks really good for the Democrats right now. All right, well, that's all for today. Thank you very much. We only have a few more days. Remember, I am doing an election day live stream, so go ahead and do that. If you do like this and want to help out what I do, you can also do a super thanks down below. Do a super thanks and just say, appreciate the work that you do, because this does take a lot of time getting the models together, putting in the numbers, getting everything together for this. And also, by the way, if you like election history, I have a whole entire another channel called Election History. Just go here on YouTube, look up election history. I'm doing a video about the 1968 Bobby Kennedy campaigns. So that might be something. I don't have the video up yet, but I'll have it out soon. All right. Well, thank you all very much. I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll be looking at Virginia and see how what election day absolutely needs to look like for the Republicans. All right. See you later. Bye-bye.